All right, welcome everybody, and welcome to the fall edition of LeanAppSec. I am on a very strict 2-minute intro timeline here, so I have Dustin Lehr joining me for our very first session. Dustin made his way from being a software developer all the way to being a security leader, and now he helps companies build security champions programs with Katilyst. He is also the founder of the Let's Talk Software security meetup group, and he's also the author of the Security Champion Program Success Guide, which is an amazing free resource. So we're going to go over to Dustin in just a moment for his session about building a proactive security culture. I just want to remind everybody that we're giving away a Millennium Falcon Lego set during this day. We've already given away a bunch of these, and I myself did not get one, which I'm totally fine with. But you have to be around to win it. So I'll check back in after this session. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Dustin, and I'll get back at the end of your session.
Awesome. All right. Am I on?
You're on. Good to go.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Ron, for the awesome intro, and thanks for having me here today. I'm super excited to talk about this topic. Let me share my screen. Hopefully everything works here, and we can jump in and get started. Feel free to ask questions throughout the session, by the way. I love interactive sessions. I think that they're actually more useful for folks overall anyway. So like Ron mentioned, we're going to be talking about building a proactive security culture through behavioral science. We're going to apply some science to this whole nebulous concept of people. So really excited to get started and talk about this. By the way, no AI was used in the creation of this content. I found this really cool website, Responsible AI Disclosure, and I've been adding it to each and every of my presentations at this point because I think it's important to be upfront about whether or not you used AI. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump in. Who am I? So Ron actually gave a pretty good intro for me. I'll just cover a couple things in a little bit more detail. I spent 13 years as a software engineer and application architect, which basically meant that I avoided talking to people. Okay, this was very much a heads down approach. I want to get really good at coding. I want to be the best engineer that I can be. Any sort of meetings or people reaching out and so forth were just kind of annoying, right? As I'm trying to get work done. Like, do you want me to fix the issue or do you want to talk about the issue? Was sort of my mindset. So you can see some of the companies that I worked for. I was in video games for a little bit. I have done retail. I've done DoD work as well. Then I moved into leadership. So I got the opportunity to lead the AppSec team at Staples. It was a pretty short period, actually, going from a technical security person to a security leader. So that was a fantastic opportunity. And then I spent quite a bit of time at Fivetran as well, helping build out their AppSec and cloud security program, and then became deputy CISO there as well. So all of this leadership, all of this application security work basically meant lots of talking, lots of interacting with people, lots of learning how to influence people and so forth. So I really leaned into that whole thing and learned a ton, which I'm going to share with you all today. I co-founded a company about 3 years ago, Katilyst. We help build security champion programs. And then I co-founded and co-host the Let's Talk Software Security community, which is basically an open discussion that we have every month. So feel free to join us. It's totally open invitation. We'd love to see you. And then I wrote this guide. So this is a totally free guide to help you build your own security champion program, the Security Champion Program Success Guide. I'm sure we'll share links with you all later. So all right, let's jump in. I like to start with a takeaway to kind of get everyone's minds going here. So I've got some blank fills to fill in. Effective prevention of security vulnerabilities and incidents requires what? Start thinking about that. If you can fill in the blanks, great. Even if you could share it in the chat, that would be awesome as well. But really, this is just to get your mind going. Money, yeah, nice. Someone said money, which is awesome. And I think, you know, you're not supposed to know the answers yet necessarily, but definitely think about the topic of this presentation to help. And then you can inspire this. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal the answer to the first one. It requires proactive action by people. We need to lean into people to help us with preventing security vulnerabilities. And how do you inspire this proactive action? Any thoughts there? Let's get your mind going there as well. Maybe I'll wait for a second for anyone that wants to take a stab at this in the chat. Awareness, I like that. I'm going for a little bit more of a broader example. I like that too. I'm going for a little bit more of a broader approach here, and it's behavioral science. We're going to talk about this throughout this whole presentation. So super excited to get started. All right, so let's actually dive into really making a case for being proactive. And I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but I do want to solidify this point. If you're going to try to make a case for being proactive, I don't think fear, uncertainty, and doubt works. And we'll sort of see this later, that sort of leans into loss and avoidance as a motivator, which is always fleeting and temporary. I think what you need to do is make a strong business case from a monetary standpoint, just how much money you're saving by being proactive. Do you like to run around and fix security vulnerabilities in production all the time? Or is there a better way that's actually much cheaper when it comes to cost savings? A lot of this comes from my own experience as a developer as well, in terms of the toil that I experienced, right? So as I was trying to code stuff, I had sprint, I had deliverables that I was working toward, and more production issues would come in, or this tech debt would be haunting me, right? Oh no, I have to go into this other piece of code, which is going to take me forever. Like, those are the types of things that we want to avoid by being proactive. Let's really lean into this human element piece, though. So I don't know how many of you have read the Verizon data breach investigations report, but that came out with a fact that 68% of breaches involved a human element, and they even caveated that this year that is a number where all of those could have been prevented through awareness. Okay, there were mistakes, errors, etc., made by people that could have been avoided if they had known better, and frankly, if they were incentivized to do differently. So people are hard, though. So let's just give up on people and focus on AI and tech, right? Is that the answer? No, I would argue not. But that seems to be a little bit of the approach. So I'm trying to get the word out in terms of the importance of really leaning into people. And thank you, someone agrees with me there. Don't give up on people. We can actually apply proven scientific methods from behavioral science, fields like psychology and so forth. People are actually well understood. And I think for me, my technical mind really loves the idea of applying more of a scientific approach to people. And it's out there. And that's part of what I found. That can be extremely effective, and that's that there's science behind it. So it makes it more technical. It makes it more fun, in my view. It's not just this guessing game. People are unpredictable. We don't know what to do with them. We actually do, and we'll go into that as we go. Another thing I want to bring up here is that, for the most part, when it comes to cybersecurity, we're in the business of change. Okay, the security team cannot handle it all. We actually need other people across the company to help influence others to take action ultimately. More on that later. But let's start to dive into some details here. And this normal curve, as you see here, represents the population of, let's say, your company. It's called the diffusion of innovation. And this has been used to explain how things like products, new ideas, new products, etc., catch on to the population as a whole. So the example that I really love to use here is the smartphone. Okay, how did this catch on, right? I don't know about you all. I was a laggard. Okay, so let me explain this graph a little bit. On the left side, we have a smaller percentage of the population who really jumps straight on board to this new idea, new product, et cetera. And then you have sort of the other extreme, the laggards, the people who they're not interested. You know, I'm fine. I don't really like change. I'm good. Leave me alone. And then you sort of have the majority in the middle, right, which is the most of the population. So let's take the smartphone for an example. When this new idea came out, right, Apple, 2007, people were lined up at the door. Some people were lined up at the door to get the first one, right? They were excited about it. They were curious about it, whatever the motivators were. You had a smaller subset of people who were ready and really wanted to get sort of that first one. And then you had the laggards like me. I was like, look, I've got a laptop, I've got a flip phone. Why do I need to sort of combine them into one? This is ridiculous. But let's see, right? So basically what happened is those early adopters started using the product. They started to tell their friends about it, how cool it was and so forth. And then the chasm was crossed, right, into the majority, to where more people in the majority started to buy smartphones and use smartphones and so forth. And then eventually even the laggards got on board. So everyone basically has a smartphone these days. I have one, of course, just like everybody else. Now, this can also represent the population at your company when it comes to change, specifically rolling out cybersecurity initiatives. You're going to have people that are allies that really latch on to what you're trying to do. And then you're going to have the majority, and then you're going to have laggards. You're going to have people that say, I don't want any part in this. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about how to effectively cross the chasm as we go. So the point is, find your allies, find those initial champions of the change that you're wanting to make, and really lean into working with them so they become advocates to influence others to cross the chasm. So why are these early adopter allies so effective? And I know this is hard to hear. I've certainly experienced this as a security person, okay? People will listen more closely to non-security people who they trust already than to you, right? They're going to listen to their friends, just like with the smartphone. They're going to listen to their friends' experience, not what the marketing team from Apple was trying to push, right? So again, you know, it's hard to hear because as security people, we're like, yeah, we're going to talk about security, but you're mostly ignored, right? Like people duck their heads when they see you coming down the hall. I've experienced that myself. So if you can instead work closely with people who do already get it and have them essentially spread the word, it's going to be a lot more effective. All right, let's dive into the behavioral science side, starting with this pretty popular sort of model for how behavior actually happens. Okay, so again, I'm gonna engage your minds here. So, what is required to see behavior? Do we want to guess here? I gave the first letter of each of the elements of this formula, M, A, and P. Anyone want to take a stab there? I see some typing, so I'm going to wait a second. Mindset, okay. Any other thoughts? Motivation, nailed it. So motivation is the first one. Attitude, okay. That's a little bit of a motivation. Awareness, payoff, attention. All right, I'm going to go to the next one. Ability. You need to be able to do something. You need to be motivated. You need to be able to do it if you're going to take that action. And what about the P? What else do you need here? Persistent, proactive. All right, so you're able to do something. You are motivated to do it. What is the last thing? What's the last thing that's going to be needed for you to actually take a specific action? Like wake up in the morning. I want to get up at a certain time. I'm able to get up at a certain time. What gets me up? All right, we are hovering around it. We're very close. It's a prompt. It's a trigger. It's something that sort of reminds you that this is a thing that needs to happen. Okay, so this would be your alarm clock. I'm motivated. Now I'm prompted to actually get up and do that behavior. So let's try to apply this to a real world situation. And specifically, hey, you know, we actually want people to attend a security awareness session or some sort of session that we create, capture the flag session, whatever that is. Can we think of some motivators? Can we think of how ability and prompt plays into people actually showing up for that meeting? Any guesses there? What would motivate someone to show up? All right, I'm going to throw out some ideas here, but I do see that some folks are typing, so maybe I'll get it. Okay, they have a stake in the project. That's a fantastic idea. That is exactly right. Ownership, exactly. They're somehow invested in that session. Maybe it was their idea. Okay, did you ask your org, hey, what do what kinds of topics do you want to see when we run this session? If someone suggests a topic that you choose, they're going to show up, right? Because they feel that ownership. Oh, this is mine. This was my idea, right? So there's a few other things here that I want to share. I just shared suggesting the topic. Maybe they're curious. That's a motivator. Oh, that's an interesting thing. I never thought of it that way. Or that's an interesting title, right? Maybe they get points for attending. Maybe it's as simple as, if I go to the most meetings this year, I'm going to get some sort of reward or recognition for that. Maybe they care what their boss thinks, and that's motivating for them. Maybe they were invited by someone that they respect, which we just sort of talked about, right? Ability, this one's pretty straightforward. Is it at a convenient time, right? Are they able to go, right? Do they know how to join, right? The video call link is available. It's sitting right there. Do they have support from their leadership, right? So that they're actually able to go and they feel like they're able to go. And then a prompt. Okay, this one is also pretty straightforward. It's on their calendar, right? Just like with this event, like 10 o'clock Mountain came around. It's time to join, right? So that's the prompt. I'm motivated, I'm able, and now that's sort of the reminder. So that's what we need to see, those three elements to see any sort of action taken or behavior taken. Let's really lean into the motivational piece. And I found this quote some months ago, which I've been sharing with everyone because I think it's basically spot on. If I heard the Mario coin sound whenever I completed a task, maybe I'd accomplish more. Anyone feel that way? I can't really see anyone's hands, but does anyone feel that way? That like, hey, if I was like doing the laundry or dishes or something, and it was just like, cool, you're accomplishing something else. You did something else. Nice work, nice work. That would be motivating, right? There's a little bit of a dopamine hit. If we want to talk about brain chemistry, we actually get chemicals in our brain that tells us, hey, that is rewarding. Keep doing it, right? Because we more or less like that feeling of accomplishing things. Tom lives for micro rewards. Absolutely, great. And this brings up this concept of gamification. And I definitely want to clear up some misunderstandings about this term, because I think that in a lot of cases, people think about gamification as simply turning something into a game. It's actually not that. It's actually taking game techniques, the techniques that work to motivate people in games, and applying them to non-game situations. My favorite example of this is what we already do with promotions today, okay? Promotions are essentially a leveling system like you see in a game. If you're playing a game, you get experience, you level up. What's the difference between that and the title and status change and increase that comes with recognition, more responsibilities, more power, and so forth? It's the exact same thing. So we're already gamifying our professional workplaces, more or less. Now, there's a lot more to lean into here, and we're going to go into a lot more detail, and this is going to be totally fun. Starting with this framework. So I found this framework years ago through a book. Okay, it was called Actionable Gamification by Yu-Kai Chow. This concept is called octalysis, and it's basically a gamification framework. But there's so much more depth here, because what's happening with this framework is this is basically the 8 core drives of human behavior, okay? And we're actually going to go through them one by one, but I want to just sort of show everybody the way that they're laid out. There's 8 of them, so they're in an octagon, and they're actually in smart positions here as well. All of the positions of the motivators are actually intentionally there, so we're going to go into that in a lot more detail. But I think what it comes down to is a lot of this is very intuitive. And I think you'll see this as we go, that we are all as humans motivated by these motivators. So let's dive in. The very first one that I want to talk about is epic meaning and calling. Okay, this is that higher purpose. This is, helping humanity and so forth, right? So the hotels certainly use this when they add that save our planet, reuse your dirty towels every day so that we don't have to use so much water to help us save the planet, right? That is an epic meaning. That is a higher purpose, higher meaning motivator that they're appealing to. Does that make sense? So that's pretty straightforward. Feel free to ask questions as we go through the rest. Accomplishment. So we just talked about that Mario coin sound, right? So the underlying motivator behind that is achievement, right? It's development. It's overcoming something, prevailing, and then ultimately earning something. So the example I like to use here is like Fitbit, right? Hitting your steps for the day, and getting that little ding or the vibration or whatever that says, hey, you know what, you did it, you accomplished something. And we go, oh, great, awesome. Yep. Next one is empowerment of creativity and feedback. This is all of our drive to be creative. And this comes out a lot in technical fields as well. As an engineer, I was always attracted to coming up with new and creative ideas to solve problems, essentially. That's really leaning into our creative side. And then how many people recognize this image? I see this game daily now, thanks to my 8-year-old. Someone's typing. I'm going to wait. It is Minecraft, 100%. What would possess someone to spend the time to do this? So if you're not familiar with Minecraft, you have to build this cube by cube, essentially. And this would take a long, long time to build. Why would someone spend the time on this? They get clearly some sort of they're motivated to do this. And I think it's this creativity drive that we all have. They want to sit back. They want to say, hey, look, that was awesome. Same with painting pictures or doing anything else creatively. Hopefully everyone is familiar with Minecraft at this point. Minecraft, was that a typo, or is that a thing that I need to learn about? I think it was a typo. All right, let's go to core drive 4. So ownership and possession. We take pride in what we own, right? We have a stronger drive to take care of and promote and so forth the things that we built or the things that we own, which is why the IKEA effect is so prevalent out there. Do you all know what the IKEA effect is? It's the fact that if you spend the time to actually assemble something or build something, you're going to be more proud of it, right? So you're going to say, hey, look at that piece of furniture that's in my house. I built that. I did something to contribute to creating that thing, which is a strong motivator of ours. Now, when it comes to thinking about things like security champions and developers, this is really where, working together on something so that you can create something together can be a very powerful motivator. Next one is social influence and relatedness. So this is really the fact that we're social creatures. We desire to please others, but we also desire to rise above others. So you actually see collaboration here, but you also see competition. Our survival is tied to the group, but also could depend on doing better than others. And this is kind of where the social side of people gets really fascinating. This is an image from the petrified wood forest. And I like to share this example where they were trying to prevent people from stealing petrified wood. So what they did is they posted a sign, and the sign said, a lot of people are stealing the petrified wood. Please stop. And you know what happened when they put that sign up? More people stole the wood. Okay. Why is that? Because of the way that they phrased it. They said, a lot of people are stealing the petrified wood. Okay. That means, social proof, right? There's a lot of people doing it. I better get in on this before it's gone. There's a little bit of scarcity in there as well. So that was the wrong wording to put there, right? It's just fascinating to me the way that people work in this way in some cases. There's a common mistake that I want to share here too. So as you present, and you've probably seen a lot of speakers do this, if you ask a question of the audience and then you say something like, boy, it's quiet in here, or not all of you speak at once, or how come no one's saying anything, or you do anything that acts like, hey, socially, no one else is doing it, people are less likely to do it. Okay, I've seen professional like keynote speakers do this. Total mistake. Don't ever do that. Okay, instead, encourage the people who are speaking up, right? Or wait, just be patient. Someone will speak up eventually, and you'll probably see me use this technique throughout the rest of this presentation. But all right, let's go into core drive 6. So scarcity and impatience. The point here is abundance is not motivating. Okay, we want what we cannot have. So limited time only sales. And then actually my favorite example here would be the limits that some supermarkets will put on things. Like there is a sale today on apples. You know, I only need 5. I go to the store, I only buy 5 every week because I eat 1 every weekday. So that's all I need. So I go into the store and it says, sale on apples today, half off, limit 8, right? Half off, limit 8. How many am I going to buy? We all know this. 8. I'm going to buy 8. Okay. I only need 5. I'm going to buy 8. And that really leans into almost taking advantage of our motivation there to feel like, hey, this must be scarce. Like I better get what I can while they're 50% off before those other people get them. Right. That really leans into our core drive there. So just fascinating the way that humans work sometimes. All right, core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity. What happens next? This is why we read books. This is why we click this little button here. How many of you recognize this button? Next episode with the little progress bar going, like a scarcity thing as well. Oh no, it's going to run out. But the point is, you just saw a cliffhanger and it's 10 p.m. and you're like, oh geez, my favorite character is about to die or whatever it is. You click the button, right? Because you're so curious and you do this with urgency. You do this because you're like, geez, I need to find out what happens next. So very strong motivator there. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later. But yeah, definitely a strong motivator of ours. And then loss and avoidance. Okay, so this is our fear of losing something. So it's hard to sort of quit what you've put so much into. This image is actually of a concept alarm clock, where if you snooze too many times, you basically put your $1 or $100 bill on top of it, snooze too many times, and it shreds your money. Okay, gone. You just lost $100. Now, who would snooze that many times to lose that money? None of us, because we do have that strong fear of losing something. This is kind of where sunk cost comes in. I don't know how many of you have heard about that. It's hard to see hands here. But once you've put a lot of time and effort into something, it's very difficult to walk away because you're essentially feeling like I'm going to lose out on all of that time that I just put into all that stuff. So those are the 8 core drives. Now let's talk about how this is laid out, because I just love how this is laid out. So the idea here is that the left side motivators are extrinsic, which essentially means that they depend on some sort of external reward. Okay. The right side, these are intrinsic motivators. Okay. They're rewarding in itself. So let's talk about the Minecraft castle. Let's talk about painting, right? Why do you do it? Like if you're spending this time doing artwork and so forth, is it because you are going to get paid for it? Like what if you spend all this time creating a beautiful masterpiece and then someone's like, hey, that's really cool. Here's $5. It's like, well, okay, I'm sort of offended now. Like you only think it's worth $5. I would rather you just not pay me at all because I didn't do it for the money to begin with, right? Or when you go to your parents' house for Thanksgiving, and you say, hey, this was a fantastic Thanksgiving meal. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Here's $50 for your effort. what, like, what? No, like that doesn't make sense, right? That's not why they did it. They did it because of the intrinsic value, not because of the extrinsic value. And then it's also laid out top to bottom in a way that's smart, right? So the top ones, we call these white hat motivators, and the bottom ones we call black hat. The top ones are essentially sustainable. You can do them a lot. You can take your time and do them a lot, but they also don't create urgency. Okay, so let's talk about the painting again. Are you painting it with urgency? Geez, I got to get this done. I'm on a timeline. No, you're taking your time. You're enjoying the act, right? And therefore, they're more sustainable. So that you could do that for hours essentially, right, without really burning out. But the bottom ones are the opposite. Okay, they create urgency, but therefore they're not sustainable. So let's take the Netflix example again, right? I know we're all guilty of this, whether you admit it or not, but binge watching Netflix, okay? Again, that button pops up, next episode, it's a cliffhanger. That creates a lot of urgency. I got to click this button right now. I need to figure out what happened. You can't just say, well, I'll just wait till tomorrow. It's fine. I'll find out when I find out. No, that's not how that motivation works. However, if you do that, like I mentioned this scenario, it's 10 o'clock at night, you click the button again, you watch another episode, then there's another cliffhanger, then you watch another one. You stay up way too late and you wake up in the morning tired, you got to go to work. Shoot, I binged Netflix again. That was a mistake. So what happens is you start making resolutions to not do it. And I can actually attest for this myself. My wife and I had to say, no more Netflix at night, period. Because we binged watched too late so many times that we had to just completely stop doing it. And that's the not sustainable part. And I like how people are admitting that they do this. Great. Thanks, Ron and Chris, for your honesty. Yeah, so we had to stop doing it. Okay, so if you lean too hard into these motivators that are at the bottom without bringing people into those sustainable ones, you're going to start to run into issues. And this comes up a lot when it comes to security champion programs. And basically just getting people more involved in cybersecurity in general. Because what happens is we use things like curiosity or unpredictability too much, and we don't use enough creativity, accomplishment, meaning. So if you want to have a sustainable experience, you need to really lean into sort of those sustainable core drives. Not everyone's motivated the same. So the way that this works, which I have nerded out to this extent, okay, is you can basically capture the motivators of a particular persona or even of a particular individual. And as you can see, there's different sort of levels of motivation for each of those different core drives here based on how far it sort of extends out from the octagon. And I have taken the time to profile my 5-year-old daughter. We call them Lehr cubs, by the way, because Lehr rhymes with bear. So we call them Lehr cubs. That's just a little insight into our family fun. So what you can see here is that she's quite motivated by things like scarcity and unpredictability. Let's look at those sort of black hat motivators at the bottom. I remember this when she was very young, and I like the idea of observing how children are motivated because they don't have all the walls up, right? They don't have all of the safeguards that a lot of us adults put into place. So you could just see their raw motivators come out. I remember dumping a pile of strawberries on her plate and she wouldn't touch them. She's like, whatever. I was like, okay, fine. Let's try something else. How about one at a time? Literally take one single strawberry, put it on her plate. She ate it. Okay. All right, fine. Put another one. Now there's just one on her plate. She ate it again. And so on until she eats the entire pile. Okay. So when it was presented as, here's a lot of stuff, she wouldn't touch it. When it's presented as, Here's only one thing. It really leaned into that scarcity motivator, like we were talking about earlier, to the point that she ended up eating all of them, right? So that just goes to show how effective this can be. The other thing about her is she loves surprises. So this unpredictability and curiosity comes into play, like on Saturday morning when we're like, hey, we're going to go to the museum today. You had no idea. We're going to go, get ready. She gets all excited about it. She's like, oh, awesome. I didn't know that we were doing this today. She gets super excited about it. All right, welcome to the Lehr house, because my 8-year-old is not that way in either case, okay? If we wake up on a Saturday and we tell my 8-year-old son, hey, we're going to go to the museum. It's going to be really fun. He gets stressed. He's like, what? I didn't know that we were doing this. Like I had other plans. I wanted to play Minecraft. I thought I was going to play my tablet this morning. So he's not happy at all. So he just really doesn't like that unpredictability. So what we have to do is we have to tell my son ahead of time that this is coming so he can mentally prepare. And then we have to tell my 5-year-old on the day of that we're going, right? So we have to kind of adjust our approach for each. We have taken the time to profile software engineers as well. And this comes up a lot because, like I mentioned before, a lot of what we do at Katilyst and a lot of what I've done in general is help people build successful security champion programs. You can't really do that without understanding the motivators of software engineers. So we've taken the time to do this over time and sort of collect data here. There's at least one interesting thing that I want to point out here that is a little bit unexpected for software engineers, and that's social influence. The fact that that is so high, we don't think of software engineers as social butterflies, but that's not really what social influence is, right? My experience as a software engineer and what I've observed of others is software engineers have essentially this like hierarchy, like a pecking order almost, where you have to almost prove that you're worthy to be part of the club, more or less. And that is a very strong social motivator, ultimately. So that's an interesting thing. And then probably no surprise, you do find a lot of motivation around accomplishment. You know, I'm not going to sit here and code and do this thing unless it's going to help me develop, help the company develop, unless I feel like I'm accomplishing something. I'm not just going to waste my time. There's so many comments that I've heard from developers, don't waste my time, I'm busy, and so forth. So yeah, question, is this why those security champion level systems work so well? Social influence, other people see that they're progressing and developing and earning accolades and so forth. And then development and accomplishment. I'm feeling like I accomplished something, right? I'm feeling like I'm developing and growing in this program. By the way, I used shorthand here. I'm just realizing. So Core Drive 2 and Core Drive 5, that's what CD2 and CD5 stand for. So Core Drive 2 would be development and accomplishment. Core Drive 5 is social influence. Yes, I've memorized all the numbers too. That's how much of a nerd I am about this stuff. Let's talk about rewards. So just money and swag. That's it for rewards, right? And pizza, by the way. No, there's more. There's more to rewards. And we talked about the promotion that you get. What's more important to you, the salary increase that you get or the status bump, the recognition of you're doing good things, maybe even access. Now you get to come to the special leadership meeting that you didn't have access to before. Now you have more power to make decisions and so forth. So there's a lot more that we can think of in terms of rewards than just stuff. And this absolutely applies to your security champion program or even just your training program and so forth. So think outside the box, think outside of stuff. Couple quick notes just on the security champion program that I led at Fivetran. We definitely built on a foundation of connecting and building relationships. And this is sort of a strategy that I've used ever since. the point is you need to build solid relationships before you're going to try to get any work done. And then you can kind of move into educating folks and then starting to look for risk, which then leads to fixing risk, which if you do the root cause analysis after fixing the risk, then preventing risk. So I think the point here is it's very hard to justify doing preventative activities unless you've made a case for demonstrating that there are live production issues that you're going to avoid in the future by being proactive. You can't do any of that without building relationships. All right. And then we did use the guide actually to build the program at Fivetran. So we went through all the steps of the guide. We very much took vision into account. Like I think creating a champion program without a clear vision, without clear goals and so forth is just going to lead you down the wrong path. Feel free to check out the guide that I wrote for a lot more details there. And then I do want to dive into some of the motivational elements that we put into place at Fivetran. We actually built out a point system so that when people took action, like reporting security vulnerabilities or whatever those actions were, desired actions, they got points for those things. And I actually put the motivators here as well, now that you all know what these motivators are. So that clearly leans into accomplishment and empowerment. You can kind of read the rest as I go through this. So points determined a level. So if you got a certain number of points, you leveled up. And then those level ups brought recognition and other types of rewards, right? Those SAPS rewards, status, access, power, and stuff. And then we did some other interesting things. I'm not sure that I have time to go into a lot of detail here, but we did think about things like, well, if they don't continuously maintain their points, their level will drop. It's sort of a CPE type of approach where we wanted to make sure, if they got to the highest level that they would continue to do things. So there was a bit of a maintenance element there, but dropping in level is a little bit demotivating, right? There's a loss factor there, like it says in the motivation column. So to combat that, what we ended up doing, as you can see here, is we actually gave out double points for actions until you caught back up, right? Because again, it's demotivating to get demoted. It's actually in the word there, isn't it? It's demotivating to get demoted. So we gave those double points so people could catch back up, and that motivated people to get right back on board. And then we had a system where we had like a mentor-mentee system, and mentors got half the points for their mentees so that they would encourage their mentees to take action as well. So that worked out really well. We had a lot of success, especially when it came to the black belts, which were the highest belts. They ended up doing things we didn't even expect or ask them to do. Like they started book clubs, they ran workshops, they ran newsletters front to back, the entire thing without the security team having to do really anything. And that was just amazing to see. This all came through inspiring them to do so and basically recognizing them. Could you imagine forcing this? Like I say here at the bottom, could you imagine a CISO just saying, hey, you random person, can you create a security newsletter? No, that's not going to work, right? You need to find those allies, encourage them to get involved, and then reinforce their involvement. A couple of stats here, because we did collect some good metrics about the impact. Champions were 2.4x more likely to report phishing emails, and then way more likely to report security issues because they had that strong connection, like we talked about earlier, with the security team. They knew what to look for. They felt comfortable. They knew that they wouldn't be shamed, that they would be recognized for those things. Another thing that we did that really leaned into the motivations of people is we basically had ranks for each team. So we took statistics and metrics about how each team was doing across the company when it came to vulnerabilities and champion involvement and lots of other factors. And we sort of rolled it into a single score. And then we gave out essentially medals for each of these teams, right? So an engineering team might have diamond status because they're rocking it. And then and so forth, right? So what's important here is we did not shame the folks who were of lower level. We highlighted the folks who were doing really, really well. And that works for a lot of different reasons. But what we saw is that attracted other people to want to be at that higher level. So that worked out really well. All right. Back to the takeaway. So who was paying attention and can fill out these blanks now? Effective prevention of security vulnerabilities and incidents requires what? What does it require? I'll wait. We've got some folks typing. Action. Exactly. Action. Action from people. Okay. Stake and involvement. That's certainly a motivator. These are good comments for sure. There's a lot of factors here, but I think it does come down to we need people to do things, to make it very, very simple, right? And how do we inspire people to do things? The second blank here. Yeah, Ben nailed it. Behavioral science, the science behind people, right? So things like BMAP, like I shared before, right? Behavior is a combination of motivation, ability, and prompt. So really leaning into that to make sure that people are taking the actions that you want. And that is pretty much it. But I do want to leave you with a bonus takeaway, and that's to get excited, have some fun around here. So the more fun and excitement that you actually bring to your security awareness and culture change initiative, and even your AppSec program in general, the more that you will inspire other people to get involved. So get excited. This can be fun, and you can definitely lean into the fun elements of what we do. So that's it. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. This is a safe QR code. I know everyone's worried about QR codes. Don't worry, I'm a security guy. I'm on your side. So feel free to connect with me by following the link or doing the QR code thing. So thanks again for having me. Thanks, Ron.
That's amazing, Dustin. Thank you. So just quick question. Someone just watched this presentation. They want to go back right now, book a meeting on someone's calendar and like get the ball rolling on creating a security champions program for their organization. And I know that this year, when we met at RSA, we had talked about how you can have sort of engineering champions and an AppSec team, and you can have security champions and an engineering team. What do you think is the first step for people listening in? Is it read the guide or something simpler than that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. I think the guide is certainly helpful, and it very much clearly gives you the first step, and that's come up with your vision. What are you trying to accomplish? You know, I need a champion program. Okay, but why? Just because your CISO asked you to build one, or are you trying to accomplish something with your champion program? What is that thing? I think coming up with that is a very important first step. Feel free to reach out to me too directly. You can also feel free to contact us at Katilyst because again, this is what we do.
Yeah, there was another question that I saw pop up in the chat of like what should the structure of security champions be? Like, do you see it's mostly volunteers, or is it you designating like you're going to be a champion and you're going to be a champion?
Yeah, there's a lot of depth there. I think what it comes down to is whatever's going to work best for your culture. And I think this is why you need to take the time to define what you want to accomplish, but also take the time to understand your culture and your motivators of your participants, right? How are they motivated? What incentive structure exists at your company? And then even things like, you know, do we really lean into collaboration or do we lean into competition? You know, what are those different elements look like? And then you can create something that's more likely to work at your company. So I think that's kind of the overall answer. Now, in terms of the volunteer versus voluntold, I am very squarely on the volunteer side. And I think it comes back to that diffusion of innovation curve that I mentioned before. You need to have willing participants in your program who are going to get excited, like we talked about, to share the message with others. And you can't really do that by forcing people to do that. It's less a factor of, we need one person per team, let's just start assigning people. It's a lot more of finding people who are already interested and bringing them into the program, and then encouraging their involvement to the point that they want to bring others in, or other people hear about it and they want to join. It's all because they want to be part of it.
Yeah. I'm wondering, just for everybody in the chat, if you have a security champions program or something similar that's going on in your org, and if you do, like, what's something that you can share with everybody on, like, either a challenge or something that worked, and from your perspective, Dustin, when you were at Fivetran or with your clients now at Katilyst, how I know we were talking about behavioral science for most of the session, but how much of this is actual, like, security training that you have to do, like secure coding best practices, versus more like the influencing people side of it?
Yeah, I mean, like I was sharing before with building sort of this foundation, I certainly think building relationships is like the bedrock that you need to build everything else on top of. You can't really accomplish anything without alignment from leadership, without getting people on board, right? So you have to move into tooling and into automation and so forth by first creating those relationships. I think the other thing that's very important for rolling out an AppSec program, and again, this is essentially the formula. This is like the strategy that I've used successfully to roll out AppSec in general, is number 3, finding that there's actually risk in your environment. Okay, because if you roll in and you just start putting preventative controls in place, like threat modeling or training, people are going to be like, well, but why? Like, why? What is the point of taking all this training and doing all this, spending all this time on things?
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't made a strong case for, look, because we've got production issues, right? Because we keep having to re-architect our solution because we're finding that it's not working the way that we wanted it to. That justifies more training and more proactive controls, essentially.
Yeah. We talk a lot about that with, at Endor Labs, a lot of what we do is about prioritization, and a lot of what we do is about, like, hey, what's the risk you should actually care about? And I think that the most successful programs that we see are ones where whatever you have in place, whether it's Endor Labs or something else, is just a tool that facilitates some sort of cultural thing. Like, I heard one customer that I was talking to that was basically saying, like, hey, the benefit is this makes meetings easier for me, right? Where a meeting between a security team and an engineering team can feel like litigation, where everybody can have different goals. And it's the same with a marketing team and a sales team, right? If not everybody has the same goals, they're not trying to do the same thing, we're going to be just fighting each other because each of us is trying to accomplish a different thing, right?
Yep.
So having this kind of clear, okay, this is the line from the production issue. This is something that you can do without sacrificing your entire time. And here's some rewards, intrinsic or extrinsic, like we talked about, that actually motivate you to do something about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes back to that toil scenario. As a dev, are you spending a bunch of time? I remember being distracted constantly. Oh, there's some other production issue this week. Yeah, but we've got sprint stuff to deliver. Okay, well, I can't focus on that right now because I got to go fix another prod issue that could have been prevented. So making that case of, like, look, your feature development is actually suffering. People like feature development, right? It's suffering because of production issues. And that's ultimately costing us more money. That's really the case that you have to make for proactive controls.
Yeah. So real quick, just before we wrap up, I know that the guide is available online. These slides, are we able to share these with everybody watching? Cool.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we will make these available to everybody over email. I would highly recommend you follow Dustin on LinkedIn, because these are the types of insights that he shares there. So I kind of hang on your every post. Um, and of course, I think you said you'll be on the road next year, hitting some OWASP meetups, RSA. So look out for Dustin on those as well. And yeah, here we have the link for Dustin's LinkedIn. Dustin, thank you so much. I am being urged to move along to the next session. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your morning to hang out with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was great.